Dumb Husky and his white cat Shizun. Extra chapters. MENG's blind date. Go balls to the wall, Jiangxi. Jiangxi led 2 rows of attendants all dressed in pale green robes into the reception hall. Today, as usual, he carried himself with the arrogant attitude that said everyone else is not right in the head and I'm the only sane one. He wore a light green robe trimmed with silver threads which was so long that it dragged on the ground. The silver pattern of his robes was made with real silver and the green material of his robes was made from the feathers of the emerald spirit bird. His outer robe was of a light gold cloud muslin cloak that flowed like the dawn and dazzling to the eyes. The way he dressed would make people think as if he was saying I'm very rich and you are welcome to rob me, if you can. His handsome face also seemed to say, do you want to sleep with me? I know you want to but no one can. The only thing that anyone could do was to lower their heads in front of him and obediently salute him with our greetings to sect leader Zhang. The MENG brothers also expressed their salutations, greeting to sect leader Zhang. The only exception was MENG who instead crossed his arms, turned his head and snorted, completely ignoring Jiangxi. Everyone blanched with fright as it was obvious that Jiangxi was in a terrible mood. Had MENG eaten the heart of bear and the gall of a leopard? As a junior, how could he audaciously disrespect a senior? For a while, everyone sweated stressfully on behalf of sect leader Shui. No one knew whether sect leader Zhang would beat him till his blood run a line or simply make him drink toxic poison. But who would have thought that Jiangxi, would just merely glance at MENG for a moment and without even saying anything just silently move away. Everyone. MENG didn't notice how shocked everyone was. He had long gotten used to arguing with Jiangxi whenever they come across each other to the point that it had become instinctual for him to provoke him. This time however, he was being ignored. He couldn't help himself from glaring and repeatedly cleared his throat, readjusted his stance and letting out another snort once he achieved a more belligerent pose. Jiangxi paid no attention to him and had not said a single word to him. His eyes wandered around the hall until his gaze landed on Elder Chen. He then asked, "Where's Manor Master Ma?" Before Elder Chen could respond, MENG snorted again. Elder Chen. This time, Jiangxi finally turned his eyes to him and asked coldly, "Do you have a sinus infection?" MENG choked as he tried to respond, I. If you do have a sinus infection, let me hear you snort again. I have medicine for that. MENG, why you? Jiangxi continued calmly, I also have treatments for stuttering. We will ensure to give proper medications until your illness is cured. Our sect offers fair treatment to all. The disciples of Dobao Manor were shocked. How could someone who had snorted thrice towards Jiangxi not get beaten to death with a cane but instead, receive sect leader Jiang's meticulous attention? Receive the blessing of having sect leader Jiang personally inquire about his health? Given his genuine and sincere attention? Even MENG looked back and forth with a thoughtful frown between MENG and Jiangxi, his golden eyebrows getting knitted more and more. Outside the reception hall, a group of female Xiaohou disciples who were there to peek in on the commotion were madly whispering amongst themselves. They couldn't help twittering excitedly. Xiaohou, look at how sect leader was spoiling him. Just like in that story the tyrannical immortal's pampered bride. Xiaohou, nonsense. This is clearly from the years I spent sleeping with my elder immortal. Xiaohou, you're all blind. Don't you see head disciple Mei's expression? Look at how unhappy he is. Seriously, I recommend that you all read the Dongxi Tea and Mushroom Bookshop's Duel May Trick the Pig. Xiaohou A and B rages simultaneously, how dare you call sect leader Shui a pig? The individuals being talked about heard nothing of this chatter. MENG was so furious with Jiangxi that he was on the brink of attacking him but was being held off by MENG. MENG stared at him, his eyes bugging out in shock. What are you doing? Are you on his side? MENG held MENG's face in his hand and smiled, your face has turned green. Why don't you sit down and have some tea? Let's calm down a bit. Let go of me. Jiang Shi looked onto the two of them indifferently. From an onlooker's point of view, Zhang Yuchen was the highest authority in the cultivation world, powerful and imposing. Xue Meng might be the most promising figure in the cultivation, but he was still someone who could be easily defeated by Gai Yuye with a single finger. Everyone could see that the discerning mediator in this fight was the man with the surname Mei, who was helping Xue Ziming, stopping him from pointlessly creating enmity with Gai Yuye sect. However, Xue Meng was blind to this fact and was unable to see Mei Hangxiu's earnest efforts. Jiang Shi mentally shook his head and turned his eyes away from these two noisy members of the younger generation. With a calm voice he asked Chen Suyuan, expression displeased, "I've been here for quite a while now. Why hasn't Manor Master Ma come out to greet his guests?" Elder Chen was stunned under Jiang Shi's scrutiny and suddenly felt a pressure like he was about to be crushed by 500 billion gold pieces. He explained hurriedly, No, please don't take it like that. Our Manor Master Ma is not being discourteous. It's because he is really very ill." Jiang Shi was still displeased and shook out his sleeves and asked, "Oh? How grave this illness is that he was even unable to come out?" It's that, our sect leader is under a spell. He turned into a flutterfly and flew away. Jiang Shi and the disciples from Gai Yuye all fell silent. After some time, Jiang Shi's anger almost gained a physical form. He narrowed his eyes, his thin lips showed how much he was holding back his fury. He asked as he sneered, "Elder Chen, have you perhaps been reading the legend of the fragrant concubine too many times?" Chen Suyuan became so frightened at being the focus of Jiang Shi's anger that his head almost shrank into his neck. He felt that sect leader Jiang might become so angry that he would throw him into an alchemical cauldron and grind him into medicinal powder. Thus, his brain spun wildly in search of something he has in common with him that could possibly let sect leader Jiang grant him enough mercy to spare his life. Thus, he cried out in nervous dread, surrounded with a ring of divine light, "Please don't kill me, sect leader Jiang. For the sake of us both being fans of the legend of the fragrant concubine, please spare my life." That's right. If Jiang Shi hadn't read this book, how would he know that the plot featured someone turning into butterfly and flying away? At this point, some of the onlookers were visualizing sect leader Jiang in his leisure time, earnestly perusing a book that had the characters that said Legend of the Fragrant Concubine on its cover. No one could bear to look straight at him. Some people even started whispering. So, it seems that sect leader Jiang enjoys that kind of reading material. I would never have thought. I guess it's true that you can't judge a book by its cover. At this, Jiang Shi's complexion had turned quite ugly. He held Chen Suyuan's collar and briefly stared intently at the man. Suddenly, he unexpectedly pushed Elder Chen away and a few chilling words came out of his thin lips, "Pull out his tongue immediately." "Yes, my lord," replied the Gai Yuye lackeys. "Ah!" Chen Suyuan screamed, "Manor Master! Help! Help! Save me!" Just then, the little bee that had been resting on a teapot heroically flew out and buzzed around Zhang Yuchen, spiraling around him in his efforts to thwart this merciless act. Jiang Shi frowned impatiently and said, "Kill this fly for me, too." "Yes, my lord," replied the Gai Yuye lackeys. Xue Meng couldn't stand the brazen action of his supposed father any longer. Pushing Mei Hangxiu aside, who had been holding him off, he shouted at Jiang Shi, "Zhang Yuchen, stop ordering to maim and kill people." Pointing to the little bee, he said, "This is the Manor Master Ma that you have been asking about. If you don't believe it, ask him to dance for you." Jiang Shi brushed his sleeves, the silver and green fabric billowing in glimmering waves. Suppressing his anger, he turned to Xue Meng and asked, "What nonsense is this? Who's talking nonsense?" Xue Meng then turned to Manor Master Ma and said, "Hurry up and start dancing. If you don't dance, you're dead." Bzzz. In order to survive, the little bee miserably landed on the table and began to flap its wings to the left, then flap its wings to the right and flew up in a spiral. Jiangshi. Now do you believe it? Shuemeng asked irritably. You were asked here to help with that, not to order people to be killed. Think of an actual solution, would you? Jiangshi stared at the bee for a moment and then turned towards Chen Suyuan. You called this a butterfly? Chen Suyuan covered his newly released throat, coughed and trembled as he answered, why yes. Come, we need to treat your eyes. Chen Suyuan, Jiangshi flapped his sleeves with a whoosh and said to his retinue, face dark, come, we'll examine Manor Master Ma. Yes, my lord, replied the Gai Yuye lackeys. After the commotion, Gai Yuye disciples examined Manor Master Ma and found that he was truly under the spell of the scroll spirit's peculiar abilities and was turned into a diligent and daring little bee. However, the spell won't last long. He would recover after 5 days and regain his human form, then he would be able to play with his favorite abacus again. After hearing this, Elder Chen Suyuan, who was clasping his own eye medicine, asked nervously, do we have to wait for 5 days? Is there any medicine that we could give to treat the Manor Master now? I could prescribe medicine, but it would be pointless. Why? It would take 6 days to refine the medicine, answered Jiangshi. Since there was no other way around it, Manor Master Ma could only begrudgingly spend 5 days as a bee. After dispensing his medical expertise, Jiangshi's business was done, but he had no intention of leaving yet. He turned his attention to Shuemeng and said, I already told you not to get involved with that sorrow-relieving scroll, but you wouldn't listen. Now look at this disaster. Shuemeng crossed his arms and glared, why don't you mind your own business? Jiangshi answered coldly, this has already become my business. You. Shuemeng said angrily, Zhang Yuchen. Are you looking for a fight? I said I didn't need you to worry about my business, all right? Hurry and shoo away and stop bothering the sect leader. Jiangshi lowered his eyelashes in a sneer and glanced at him, who wants to care about your business? I need to be involved because the scroll spirits had started chasing beauties across Linen. Yesterday, it broke through the barrier of my Gai Yuye sect. It was disturbing my peace. Did you think I would come here otherwise? The lackeys beside Jiangshi added in support of their sect leader, that's exactly right. This matter requires sect leader Jiang's intervention. Don't you know yet, last night, it impersonated sect leader Jiang's appearance and blew through the pleasure districts of Yangzhou City. It slept with 7 to 8 courtesans in a row and promised to make them the Gai Yuye sect leader's first wife, second wife, third wife, all the what to the 8th wife. Shuemeng was speechless. The lackey added, when our sect leader went out this morning, he unexpectedly came across this group of women face to face. They surrounded him, fawned at him and called him husband in front of all the people of Yangzhou. Oh! Sect leader Shui, you can just imagine it. Sect leader Zhang got so mad, his face was dash. Are you done yet? Jiangshi loomed, cutting him off. With this scolding, the lackey got scared into shrinking his head into his neck. Mei Hangxiu couldn't help but lower his eyelashes and giggled. Jiangshi noticed him and his gaze sharpened like 2 knives. However, in the end, he only turned back to Shuemeng and said, in any case, this matter has come to my hands to settle. You don't need to concern yourself about it anymore. Chen Suyuan has heard how Jiangshi was planning to eliminate the spirit all by himself. He couldn't help paling from fright and said, Se sect leader Zhang, you absolutely cannot subdue it by force. If you do, it will leak out all the intimate secrets of everyone in the cultivation world. In Jiangshi's original plan, he intended to send out an invitation to meet with the scroll spirit tonight, and then with it arrived, he will weaken it with medicinal powder, then smash it into pieces. However, when he heard the warning of Chen Suyuan, Jiangshi couldn't help furrowing his brows. What intimate secrets? Aren't they just some records of conversations? How could it only be just that? Chen Suyuan replied. The first time every cultivator used the scroll, they had to answer a series of questions. Once the scroll breaks, all the answers it received will be made known to the entire world. After a pause, he carefully reminded Jiangshi, sect leader, if you had ever used the sorrow-relieving scroll, then you should have an idea what sort of questions and answers were those. Noble people often forget things. Jiangshi lightly tilted his head and tried to think for a while until he finally recalled the incident in question. At that time, the scroll did ask him many very personal and perverted questions like, is there anyone you like? If no, then why not? Do you have children? Why did you have a child? May I ask if it was an accidental pregnancy? Why procreate when you don't like children? Did your spouse abandon you? Dear customer, please do not scold me. This scroll is only concerned about your love life. Moreover, in light of your situation, we recommend that you purchase Dobeo Manor's Sunset Red spiritual instrument. With this, we can introduce your single-parent self to 3 to 5 outstanding customers like yourself in the hope that you will have a happy second marriage as soon as possible. How wonderful! Now he remembered that dreadful experience in its entirety. Jiangshi kept his face blank, but in his head, he promised that on the pain of death, he would never allow those answers to be made known to the public. While he was gloomily resting his hand on his chin and silently considering other potential methods of subduing the scroll spirit, he heard Mei Hangxiu's voice saying, Sect leader Zhang, if nothing else, your position is lofty and you are our elder. Since this matter is the fault of myself and sect leader Shui, let us gently resolve it. This seems to be something not suitable to your abilities. Jiangshi didn't quite understand what he meant by gently resolve it, but he couldn't help but raised his apricot eyes towards Mei Hangxiu and asked, what are you planning? Mei Hangxiu smiled, just like Manor Master Ma, my plan involves cross-dressing in order to seduce it. Although he didn't quite understand why this man of the younger generation was such a flirt, it had nothing to do with him and so he let it slide. Zhang Yuchen's eyes swept up and down towards Mei Hangxiu and was just about to wish him good luck and leave the scene when he heard Mei Hangxiu continued with a smile, and it won't be difficult to get sect leader Shui all dolled up either. Jiangshi stared. Shui Meng also stared and his expression was exactly the same as Jiangshi's. What? You want me to pretend to be woman and flirt with that scroll spirit? Exactly. Mei Hangxiu answered with a grin. Why not do it yourself? Shui Meng yelled. Of the 3 of us, you are the most suitable. Besides. Before he could finish, Jiangshi interrupted with a dark face, be quiet. Listening to you gives me a headache. The Mei brothers and Shui Meng simultaneously turned his way. Jiangshi's demeanor seemed cold enough to send people into shock, his face seemed to be carved out of ice. He glanced at Shui Meng and then turned his head to say frostily to Mei Hangxiu, he is not suitable. I'll do it. End chapter. Dumb Husky and his white cat Shizun. Extra chapters. Shui Meng's blind date. Jiangshi gets hoisted by his own pet version. Although Jiangshi volunteered to take this job, it's a fact that no one believed that Jiangshi had any skills in cross-dressing. Most people even suspected that Jiangshi's impression of woman was probably just a perfunctory one. But when Elder Chen ran to him cautiously and asked, Sect leader Zhang, do you know the difference with ladies? Jiangshi replied indifferently, of course. Ah, Elder Chen was surprised. I thought you have never had that sort of encounter with any ladies before. Jiangshi replied coldly, who said that? Shui Meng was surprised when he heard that. He thought that Jiangshi was going to cite Madame Wang as an example and hurriedly stood up to stop him. However, he heard Jiangshi continued. A being measuring less than 8 J, comprised of skin and flesh. Its outside dimension can be obtained through measurement, once it's deceased, it can be dissected for further analysis. Elder Chen's face showed utter befuddlement, what does that mean? A Gaiyu lackey helpfully replied, yeah, Our sect leader is saying that he has dissected female corpses before. Apologies, this medical sect is truly too terrifying. Elder Chen sputtered for a while before he managed to stutter out. Then, sect leader SH should be very familiar with the particulars of female anatomy, right? Jiangxi glanced at him with indifference and displayed a thorough understanding of the matter with an expressionless face. The bones are fine, voice is high-pitched and smooth. There is a high percentage of fatty tissue, the body shape is curved and contained within our parts such as vulva and ovaries. Dead silence reigned. Jiangxi coldly and confidently looked down at him, paused and said, I am the author of the volume of Gai Yuye's gynecological prescriptions worth 1,000 gold that contains anatomical diagrams. If you are curious, you can take a look at it. Mei Han Shui. Shui Meng. Mei Hanks Yu. After a long while, Elder Chen face palmed. He thought of the ways this cold-blooded hothouse flower volunteered to disguise himself as an amorous beauty to deceive the scroll spirit and couldn't help but softly wail, it's over, it's all fucking over. Forgive him, but with Zhang Yuchen's understanding of women, how the hell is he expected to convincingly pretend to be a woman? Is he planning on dissecting himself? That evening, Dobeo Manor's lanterns were brightly lit, its wind chimes gently chiming. Zhang Yuchen had early on finished his preparations and was waiting alone in a side room. In accordance to Ma Yun's theory on how to catch the spirit, sect leader Zhang also lit some bewitching incense in the room. Dressed as a woman, he waited for the scroll spirit to arrive. As long as the spirit voluntarily stayed in the room for a cup of tea, their plan would succeed. The scroll spirit would inevitably lose its will and express its adoration to anyone, even a cell. They could then take the opportunity to subdue it gently. Of course, the invitation letter was written by someone else because sect leader Zhang had no idea how to write a coaxing letter. Earlier, they've asked him to write the letter, but after a long time of deliberation, he had written one vigorous and ferocious character which read, "Come," which inspired awe with the onlookers. Fortunately, Dobeo Manor's Xiaoho disciples were experts at soft persuasion. Soon, they wrote a new letter on sect leader Jiang's behalf, filled with unceasing affection and longing that flowed like the tides. So that emergency was solved. At this moment, all the Manor's disciples were hiding in the dark. Shui Meng also watched from some dark bushes. He whispered to Mei Han Shui with some uncertainty, "Will it be fine? Could Jiangxi really distinguish between those different makeup powders? Does he really know how to dress up as a woman?" Mei Han Shui replied, making no attempt to console at all, "We'll see." Feeling even more uneasy, Shui Meng swallowed his saliva and said with difficulty, "Maybe I should check up on him, Just as he was about to emerge from the bushes, Mei Hangxue grabbed him and pressed him down. "Hush." Then he motioned at Shui Meng to look at the walkway leading to the side room and whispered, "Here it comes." In the moonlight, the scroll spirit wore a clock, probably a deliberate attempt to imitate the style of the Taxu Palace disciples. Surrounded by an unceasing ring of floating petals and fluttering butterflies, the spirit wandered aimlessly into the courtyard. Although its face was hidden by the hood, looking at its gait, one could tell that it wasn't too clever. From Jiangxi's chamber came the faint sound of a bamboo flute. After listening to this music for some time, the scroll spirit thought this flute player wasn't too bad but might be better playing the xiao. It then happily walked to the door and softly knocked twice, then said, "Lady, this humble one received your invitation and has come to call on you. May I disturb you?" After its 2 knocks, Jiangxi ignored it. Seeing that the door was open, it stopped being polite and said, "If Lady doesn't mind, this one will enter." Jiangxi still didn't answer, but Shui Meng suddenly gasped, "Why does this voice sound so familiar?" In the side chamber, the scroll spirit has opened the door and entered the room. The flute music has finally stopped. Although Shui Meng felt uneasy, he still thought that since it's Jiangxi, he could still delay the spirit long enough to drink a cup of tea. It would then become entranced by the incense in the room and developed affection to the person inside that room, Then they could bring it down in one fell swoop. Before he could finish the thought, he heard a loud boom. Shwemeng asked alarmed, "What happened? It's only been long enough to blink an eye." Surely, Zhang Yuchen's disguise as a woman couldn't look that bad that it made the spirit vomit. In front of the dumbstruck eyes of the onlookers, the scroll spirit flew into the air along with a wooden door and an overturned table, all of it were illuminated by the light of an unsealed spiritual weapon. Contrary to what Shwemeng thought, the spirit wasn't making a retching sound but was rather screaming ah. Under everyone's attentive gaze, it smashed into the ground with a thump. Everyone. "Ouch," the scroll spirit cried out miserably, "Ow, ouch, it hurts, ouch." Meanwhile, Zhang Yuchen came out brimming with murderous intent, brandishing his sword. Mei Hangxiu stared, blinked twice, turned his head and asked Mei Hanshui, "Am I seeing this wrongly? In what way is he dressed as a woman?" "There's nothing wrong with your eyes." Mei Hanshui looked at Zhang Yuchen expressionlessly from a distance. "He didn't dress up." But then Shwemeng contradicted, "He did dress up." Mei Hanshui. Mei Hangxiu. "In what way did he dress up?" Shwemeng pointed to Jiangxi's wrist and said, "Look, he's wearing a slender white jade bracelet. Only women wear that." The Mei brothers simultaneously felt silent. After a while, Mei Hanshui said indifferently, "The way I see it, you and Zhang Yuchen aren't really that much different. You probably think that the difference whether a woman dolled up or not depends on whether they put on lipstick." Shwemeng stared blankly then asked with bewilderment, "Well, isn't that the case?" Mei Hanshui. While they were talking in their corner of the yard, everyone was wondering exactly what had happened between Jiangxi and the scroll spirit. Jiangxi was so furious that his handsome eyebrows were drawn into a vertical line. His spiritual weapon Suihuang flowed with a silvery light in his hands, making a buzzing sound. With one hand, he hauled up the stunned scroll spirit who had been laying on the ground. The spirit cried out, "Ah! Great beauty! Great beauty! How can you be so cruel? How can you bear to raise your hand to my handsome face?" Jiangxi snarled, "I'm going to kill you." The spirit wailed, "Wah, murderer!" As the two fight, the scroll spirit's hood slipped down, revealing the face that was hidden before then. The onlookers became speechless. The scroll spirit truly deserved to be beaten to death. It had the audacity to wear Jiangxi's face in this meeting. If they really stopped to think about it, they should have suspected something like this already. The night before, the spirit had taken on Jiangxi's appearance to visit courtesans in Yangzhou and had received quite the warm welcome. The spirit probably got a bit overconfident, so tonight it again donned the appearance of sect leader Zhang to show off and fool an innocent maiden. It just so happened that the one he was meeting was actually Jiangxi himself. But because it wasn't very clever, it didn't realize that the one he was intending the flirt with was actually Jiangxi himself. Now, everyone could probably imagine what Jiangxi had experienced in that room. He probably saw himself grinning as the spirit entered the room and started flirting by saying all sort of things as he played with his hair while sweetly and intimately calling out, lady." Who would have thought that he would be flirted with by someone wearing his own face? No wonder Jiangxi was furious. Who wouldn't be? Seeing that Jiangxi was genuinely seething in rage and wanted to execute the scroll spirit right there on the spot, the disciples of Dobeo Manor who were laying in ambush rushed out one after another and in an uproar hurried to pacify him. "Sect leader Zhang, don't act impulsively. As soon as you strike, it will release all those secrets. Please calm down, sect leader Zhang." The scroll spirit may have looked stupid, but it was quick to make a nimble and speedy escape. When it saw that the situation wasn't good, it immediately scrambled away in the chaos, as if it has flown away using the dark of the night as cover. As it ran away, it bellowed in a profound theatrical voice, Gai Yu Yes Zhang Yuchen will return. Wa ha ha ha. Jiangxi was so furious that his straight and finely shaped nose looked like it will grow crooked. "You vile little beast," he screamed, livid with anger. In his entire life, he had never seen himself before flee like a rat. No one would even dare to think of such a thing. The scroll spirit probably thought that just yelling wasn't irritating enough, so it even dramatically added echo to its declaration, as if calling from far away, Gai Yu Yes Zhang Yuchen will return, return, turn. You're dead. All the disciples coaxed Zhang Shi, sect leader Zhang please. I'll show you what would happen if you dare to use my face again. All the disciples begged Zhang Shi, sect leader Zhang please. Zhang Shi roared, I'm going to make you suffer from epilepsy, gonorrhea, hysteria, nasal hemorrhage, craniotomy, scrotal gangrene, and every illness in the Feng Lao Gu Ji. He was still roaring, but everyone had already ceased to understand the medical terms he was spouting. However, they continued to calm him down earnestly. Only Meng on the side asked the question in all seriousness. What does Feng Lao Gu Ji mean? Mei Hangxiu, who was standing on the side, answered, I believe it is the 4 incurable diseases as described in medical books. Seeing the Meng still didn't seem to understand, Mei Han Shui on the other side explained with a blank face, simply put, he wants it to suffer and be tormented by every single illness until it dies. Meng's face twitched ever so slightly as he continued to watch the commotion on. The furious Zhang Shi was surrounded by a group of Dobeo Manners Xiaoho disciples who ceaselessly begging him. No, let it go. Please let it go. Sect leader, please calm down. Please relax please. Zhang Shi's rage was obviously something not easily quelled. He wasn't a broad-minded person to begin with, and having been bedridden for several months have only made his temper even more vile. Add in the fact that the spirit took on his appearance to commit disgraceful things only made him boil with fury. He momentarily lost all sense of decorum and ferociously yanked his sleeves away from the grasp of whichever disciples was holding onto it and roared, Release me. All right, I'm releasing you. We will listen to whatever sect leaders say. I'm going to kill that. The disciple who had just breathed a sigh of relief hurriedly blocked him again. You mustn't. You absolutely can't. Hurry, bring sect leader a seat. Pour some tea to cool him down. In the middle of the chaos, there was a sudden flash of a green light. The disciples screamed in utter shock, and one after another, they scattered. At the same time, Zhang Shi's footing suddenly became unsteady as he stumbled a few steps and then fell into a kneeling position on the ground. Everyone instantly fell silent, trying to blame each other with their eyes. Heavens, why didn't you hold on to sect leader Zhang? You were the one close to him, why are you blaming me? While everyone else was questioning, what was that green light? At this time, the little bee that Manor Master Ma has turned into buzzed its way over. Elder Chen Suyuan froze for a moment as his face suddenly lost its color. He slapped his bald head and shouted, Oh no! No! It's not good! Sect leader couldn't contain the scroll spirit either. He's going to get cursed, too. He's going to turn into an animal, too. When Meng heard this, he jumped up from the bushes, greatly alarmed as he asked, What? End chapter.